and welcome to the latest episode of Inside High School Sports. My name's Alex Brasky alongside Nate Ryder of the Batavia Daily News, here to bring you through the latest big-time storylines in high school sports. Nate, we're getting closer and closer to sectionals, but still about probably about a month left in the regular season as far as basketball concerned, at least. I think wrestling gets done a little bit earlier, but we'll jump right into it. Beginning with one of the most resurgent teams in the local area, the Genesee Ice Devils. One of their best seasons in recent seasons. Actually, their best, I think, in about a decade. When I talked to head coach John Kirkwood, Nate, what they're doing this year is really impressive, considering the depths that they were in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and one of the things you got to look at too is I believe they also have a JV program now that they hadn't had in the past, and they're starting to build it from the ground up. They were. You don't want to knock any high school kids, but it was a pretty sad situation for a while there at Batavia, and then they got the merge, and it still didn't really work, but I think now it's really starting to work, and then they're starting to get on par with some of those other teams. I know they played Brockport the other night and lost, but they lost just 3-1. They had one bad period, and it kind of cost them, but yeah, they've definitely come a long way in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and Coach Kirkwood is really excited what he's seen, not only from the upperclassmen, but the younger classmen as well. And we spoke with one member of each school that make up the merge program, that is the Genesee Ice Devils, Elba, Leroy, and Batavia. So here's my interview with the Ice Devils from earlier this week.
The effort part has been great for the last couple of years. We've had a little bit more depth this year. We've got a little more firepower, and I think that's been the difference so far for us. But one of the things we pride ourselves on is that the guys generally work hard all the time.
Being one of the more senior guys on the team, I think it's important to lead by example. And just from my freshman year to my senior year now, seeing some of the guys, it's more of a tight-knit group. I mean, there was some separation in the past, but now we're all like one big family, and we enjoy every day we've got here.
We always got people ready. I mean, we look at our bench, and we got young guys. We got like 10th graders, we got 8th graders. They can all play. We can all play. Yeah, just recently, we've really come together as a team. We've gone through some rough patches, but we're really tight right now. We've got a lot of momentum going and just keeping that momentum forward.
Now, Derek, speaking of the postseason, it's something that you guys really haven't been able to look forward to the past couple of years, just knowing that the state of the program where it was at. But this year, I'm sure you're really looking forward to that postseason and seeing what you guys can do. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, today just in practice, we kind of drew up like a mock diagram of what we're projected to be seated at and things like that. So, I mean, everybody coming into the season knew that we had something special with this team, and we're just ready to kick it into high gear in the postseason.
Now, Carter, what have the coaches been telling you over these past couple weeks? I mean, you guys are 5-6-1. It's not like you're undefeated, but you're really experiencing some success that you haven't in the past. What have the coaches been telling you to keep you focused on the task at hand rather than getting caught up in the increased success?
Well, they're just telling us about how good of a group we are now and getting better and better, and that work together and we'll be successful.
I think the biggest piece of the puzzle is learning to play for themselves, and play for their teammates, working hard day in and day out, understanding how important defensive hockey is at this time, and not really caring who gets the credentials or the accolades, but just working to get the job done.
All right, and Nate, another team that is really putting forth one of their best seasons in the past 2-3 years, the Notre Dame boys. A couple of huge wins, including over Elba recently, but their most recent victory, well, big victory anyway, over Prattsburgh this past week. You were at that game. What did you see from the Irish that, in my opinion, led them to their most important win of the year?
Well, I tell you, I went to that game not knowing what to get from these guys because, like you said, they beat Elba and then came back with a dud against Oakfield. Even though Oakfield's good, I mean, Notre Dame probably played their worst game of the year, and I wasn't sure what to expect, but, they put up 97 points on, I think, the number 5 team in the state, Class D.
Incredible.
Colin McCulley, the sophomore, is coming into his own. If they play like that, they can beat anybody in the state. But just last night, they had a tough time getting past Alexander.
Yeah.
So you never know what kind of team is going to show up. But if they play the way they did against Elba and they play the way they did against Prattsburgh, they can beat anybody on any given night.
Yeah, there's no doubt. This team definitely has a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde streak in them, but they have all the talent to make it work. And, if Colin McCulley is scoring upwards of 20 points game in and game out, that's an extremely difficult team to beat. We know they have Gabe McDonald, Keith Shapansky inside, Mark Sanders Jr. on the outside. They got talent all over the floor, and they finally put it together against Prattsburgh when Nate had a chance to speak with McCulley and senior Gabe McDonald along with head coach Mike Rapone.
Well, I know what they've been capable of doing all year. It's just taking us a while to put the pieces together. They executed the game plan perfectly. Couldn't ask for anything better. So proud of these guys tonight.
You know, granted they scored 80, but I thought you guys did a great job on Mason Putnam, who's one of the best players in Section 5 history. What'd you think of the defense tonight?
Yeah, great effort by the guys. Every one of them, all 7 guys that played, did exactly what they were supposed to do.
You know, Gabe, I asked you this after the Elba game, but then you came back with a loss to Oakfield, and, you know, it's still been up and down. What does this win do for you guys against, I think, the number 6 team in the state?
Depends on how everybody on our team takes it. I mean, sometimes we ride that up, and sometimes kind of have, like Coach likes to say, a hangover where, you know, the next game kind of like chill out and, you know, don't take it as serious as other games. So,
You know, Kyle, last 2 games for you, probably your 2 best high school games of your varsity career. You know, what's been the change the last 2 games for you?
It all started in practice. Practice has been a lot more competitive. We've been going at each other, and it really shows on the court. It's so much fun. The talent that we got coming up, even on the JV level, is amazing.
All right, and a team that Notre Dame also beat earlier this year, the Perry Yellow Jackets. Another team that's really on the rise. They got a solid group of kids on that team, kind of senior-laden with a couple of their guys. Carson DeVinny, I know, is a senior. Michael Hockey is senior. But the 2 underclassmen got it done for them in their most recent win over Elba. Huge win for the Yellow Jackets. Michael John Grover, a junior, and Mitchell Hockey, a sophomore, came through huge in that game. Hockey, I think, 16 points in the second half out of his team-high 19. Just incredible effort from the Yellow Jackets in that game. Really came out and stuck with Elba throughout the whole game. And in that fourth quarter, they really pulled away. An impressive win for the Yellow Jackets.
Perry's another one of those teams. They started off really slow, kind of up and down a little bit, but, you know, they had a win over Avon, and now they get this big win over Elba. And I think you're starting to see, you know, you get a first-year head coach. It takes a little while for everything to really fall into place, no matter what kind of talent you have. And, you know, these guys showed the other night, like you said, that game was close all the way throughout until the fourth quarter. And Perry just completely took over that game. And that's what that team can do. You didn't really see it against Notre Dame earlier, but you've seen it against Avon. Now you've seen it against Elba. And, you know, that's a team that's, I think, is one of those getting better and better each week.
Yeah, and Coach Macaluso would agree with you. He thinks his team has really hit their stride, hit a turning point. And I spoke with head coach Anthony Macaluso along with Grover and Mitchell Hockey about their most recent win over Elba.
Well, I think over the course of the last 3 games especially, they've turned a new corner, and I kept kind of telling them we were a little bit on a losing streak before these last 3 games, and I told them, you know, just keep working hard. They come to practice, work hard, and it's been showing up the last 3 games for sure.
That's 3.
Oh, it's great. Great team, great players. Colton Dillon's a great player. I think we came out strong, and we scored well. They couldn't stop us. Our offense was just moving, and like Coach said, we started out slow, and we've beaten some good teams. Avon was very good. Genesee Valley was scoring a bunch. And these guys were very tough, and we just came out and beat them.
Now, Mitchell, I mean, I'm doing the broadcast up there, so it's hard for me to follow along with stats, but it didn't seem like you did much in the first half, but you really exploded in the second half. What was the difference for you?
our defense turned into offense, and my teammates found me, and I just got in a rhythm.
How do you hope to use this as a springboard going forward?
It just shows that we can beat good teams and just keep playing like we have, and yeah.
I mean, like Coach always preaches, our defense. Our defense creates our offense. We play good on defense. We don't have to worry about scoring however many, 77 points a game. We lock them up on this end, scoring will come.
Well, I'm very happy because, for one, they've bought into our system, and I think a lot of coaches preach defense, and but not every kid really buys into that all the time, and these guys really have, and it's shown up in a lot of our scores.
All right, Nate, another Livingston Conference boys basketball team putting together a fine season, but perhaps their biggest matchup to date coming tonight. Avon taking on Cal Mum in Cal Mum, and the Braves put forth a great second-half performance against Dansville earlier this week. We were there. Dansville really came out of the gates strong, but Avon put the press on and really ended up running away with that one. But the big story with Avon this year is they're being led by 3 brothers, Michael, Andrew, and Nick Rowland, all major contributors for the Braves. We saw them out there throughout the game. What can you say? I mean, it's got to be so exciting for these kids to be able to take the floor together day in and day out, and not only take the floor together, but help their team win games.
Well, first off, you like to hope they get along. Because,
no, they seem to in the interview, that's for sure. They seem like a tight-knit bunch.
If they don't get along, it's going to be rough. But
I can't say the same for me and my brothers back then. But
it's one of those things. We're actually seeing it a lot this year with brothers and sisters playing on the same team. But to have 3 of them on the same team and contributing is very rare. And 2 of them will be back next season. I know Nick is graduating this year, but they all showed what they could do the other night. They started off slow against Dansville. It's one of those games, I think, where you go into it thinking, okay, this is going to be pretty easy, and Dansville plays probably their best half of basketball all year and keeps it close for a while, and you have to pull away at the end. But like you said, they'll get a tough test against Cal-Mum. But yeah, playing with your brothers has to be fun. It's got to be exciting, and maybe at some point they all get in the starting lineup at the same time, and and see what they can do. But yeah, it's a pretty neat thing to be able to see in this area.
And as exciting as it is for the kids, it's got to be even more exciting for the parents. I mean, being able to go to their son's varsity game, and not only one son, but all 3 are on the court together. So it's got to be great for the Rowlands. And we caught up with them after that game. Me and Nate broadcasted live, but this interview, Nate was manning the camera, his debut on the video camera, and I conducted the interview. But here's the interview with the Rowlands, the 3 brothers from Avon.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, just growing up with them and stuff, it's fun to play together because we get to go out to practice every day, work hard together, and it's awesome.
I get to experience both of them, so I think it's a great experience, and going out there, being able to play with both of them, because not many people get to play with their brothers in varsity basketball. So.
It's awesome. They've just been a great role model to me, and to finally get to play with them, it's been a great experience. I've been looking forward to my whole life. I've always wanted to play with my 2 older brothers.
All right, Nate. Seems like you've been following upsets around the area this year. I mean, every game you go to, it seems like there's just a huge upset. And the latest was perhaps the biggest of the year, the Alexander girls overcoming the defending sectional champion Oakfield-Alabama girls, who had just beaten Class D state number 1 Elba.
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't as close as the final score. Alexander dominated that whole game. I honestly went just to get a few pictures, and I figured I'd stick around, and and Coach Marcia Hirsch said this afterward, that all this team kind of needs is a little confidence, and they definitely have some talent. They're young. They only have 1 senior playing, and Mackenzie Nichols, the other one, was injured and isn't going to play the rest of the year. So it's a young group, but I have to say it. Sophomore Natalie Whitmore dominated Brianna Smith all night long till she fouled out. Something they got to work on a little bit, but
But sometimes it's tough when you're going up against a player like Smith. It's tough to not foul out.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
she held her own, and I mean Morton held her own. She outplayed her the whole game, and they're scrappy, they're tough, and I don't think Hirsch gets as much credit as she should as being one of the top coaches in the area, because she gets the most out of her team as she can. And I tell you what, after watching them play, that could be a scary team. If you're going into sectional, seeing a team that's around the 500 mark and not thinking much, they can beat pretty much anybody if they're on like they were the other night.
Yeah, I think you're dead on about Coach Hirsch. She's been around a long time, and she's seen it all. And you're right. She's a great motivator. She gets a lot out of those girls, and there was no greater example of that than Alexander's win over Oakfield, which, like I said, Nate was at and had a chance to speak with Coach Hirsch along with a few of her players following that big win.
I have a lot of young girls, but they come every day and work hard, and we worked hard on our defense, especially for Brianna Smith. She's an awesome player. We knew we had to stop her, so that was our goal tonight, and I'm not sure how many points she had, but I think we stopped her. So. I've been telling her all year long that she can dominate down there if she just works harder than everybody else, and I think tonight that she was working hard, and unfortunately she had to foul out.
She's very big and very good, so it was pretty intimidating, but I couldn't let that get to me. I just had to play my best and play like I knew I could, and being one of the youngest on the team is hard for me, but Marcia has really taught me and everybody else, so doing good.
I think it's going to bring the team up and give them a lot of heart,
That's all I've been asking the girls, being one out of the 2 seniors, is just play with heart this year.
It's huge for us with all the young kids. We start an 8th grader. We've got a ton of freshmen on the team. It's just a huge confidence builder, and now maybe they'll believe me when I tell them that they are good and that we can beat teams. But we have to work this hard every night.
All right, Nate, there's a first time for everything, and a first for me this year, Riflery in the Glow region. And not only do we have Riflery, but we have one of the best Riflery athletes in New York State, Rachael Paddock, coached by her father, Nathan, just doing a great job this season. And admittedly, I don't think either of us know much about Riflery, except it's you have to shoot a gun. I think that's pretty much the extent of our knowledge on the subject. But our cohort, Chris Metcalf, went out and spoke with Rachael and Coach Nathan to discuss Rachel's recent success and everything she's accomplished. And she's really put forth a fantastic season, 62 medals during her young career. She's the only Section 5 athlete competing as a team of 1, and she competes at every Kenmore home match. So that's where she competes, and she was just 8 points away from qualifying for the Junior Olympics. So a lot of accomplishments for this young Rachael, and here's a little bit of what she had to say about her recent success in Riflery.
Rachael, I just spent the last 30 minutes kind of watching you shoot there. That's kind of neat, but were you always this good?
No, I was lucky if I hit the paper every time when I first started out. I started out on our 4-H club's team, and that's when I realized that I really liked the sport, and I started doing more of it on my own time. And I went to a ton of different matches, and I practiced almost every single day.
Probably one of the worst shots I ever started out teaching. But neat part with the game is if you work really hard, natural ability is not what gets you there, it's your hard work. And she really took off with that. We went to a couple summer camps for marksmanship camps, and that made a huge difference. Gave her some motivation, met a lot of NCAA athletes.
Yeah, and that's a great story. Just one of those sports that doesn't get talked about, and when you're that good, I mean, you deserve the recognition all the time. But as my cell phone goes off here, Nate,
but it's got to be tough. You see a lot of quote unquote individual sports, wrestling, tennis, golf. You're out there by yourself, but you're still part of a team. Mm-hmm. She's doing this all on her own with her father, and it's got to take a lot of self-motivation and a lot of patience, and a lot of things that you won't see. And, that's really good for someone to be able to do that around here.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great story in a different sport. I know we're heavy basketball in this show, but we try to mix in all the other sports. And one of the top athletes in the area for any sport has been Nate DeGroff, Warsaw wrestler. He's a senior now. He's been to the state tournament the past several years. I believe he finished 3rd last year. Just a great kid, a great role model for young athletes, and I think he's being rewarded for that. He was recently nominated for the United States Military Academy. So that's a huge honor for Nate. He said it's one of his dreams to go there and wrestle, and that's really got to be a thrill for him, receiving that nomination and having his senior year to look forward to.
Yeah, he's been for the last 3-4 years one of the best wrestlers in the LCAA, which is, probably the best, if not one of the best wrestling conferences in the area. And, to be able to go to states 3 years in a row and place 3 years in a row. And, now he's got those eyes on that state title that's kind of been missing out. But, what a fantastic football player he was. He had a great season doing that. And you like to see a nice, well-rounded kid. And from what I know, he's a great kid. We talked to him, I believe, over at Warsaw for football, before the football. And he was a nice kid. And it's good to see somebody achieving like that. And like I said, it's got to be hard doing it in that conference because there's a lot of good wrestlers in the LCAA.
Yeah. And Chris Metcalf also spent some time with Nate out at practice to get his thoughts on where he hopes to go this year, his thoughts on the nomination to the military academy, and just overall what he expects from his final season in a Tigers uniform.
I just came to your practice, man. You guys are working hard, Nate. Now, how important is this next month and a half to you?
Really important. It's about getting into these hard practices, pushing your partners and the rest of your team to get yourself better and the rest of the team better. When we're drilling, it's almost like we're wrestling a real match. We're going so hard. It's just about mat experience. The more mat experience you get, the more comfortable you get with different position, and the best overall wrestler you'll become because of it.
You know, how disappointing. I know last year was the goal to get on top of that podium, like many Warsaw wrestlers have done in the past. I know that's your number one goal this year. But how much of a motivating factor was that, you know, losing that semi, coming back this year, and getting on top of that podium?
It's the fuel for every practice, every tournament, every match. After that, it's been my fuel.
There's a lot of great wrestlers, a long storied tradition of wrestling at Warsaw. How important is it to you to put your name amongst that legacy?
I mean, I always try to live up to that expectation, but I don't really feel any pressure from it. I got the coaches to support me and the rest of the community to support me.
No, someone was telling me you got your nomination this year to the West Point Academy, United States Military Academy. How cool would that be if you actually continue your wrestling career there?
That would be really cool. It's probably one of my top choices and definitely a dream.
All right, Nate, that's going to wrap things up for the latest episode of Inside High School Sports. Another jam-packed episode full of successful teams, great stories, and everything that has to do with high school sports. But I ask you for this at the end of every show. What are your thoughts on what you've seen over these past couple of weeks, and what are you looking forward to moving forward here?
Well, the one thing I'm looking forward to is tonight, Friday night, girls basketball, GR, Elba against Byron Burgeon in Burgeon. My old baseball coach in Little League, Rick Krasinski, coaching the Byron Burgeon Bees against Elba, both one-loss teams. I think this is a big game for Burgeon to kind of show that they're for real this year, and I think they are. They have a very good chance of knocking off Elba, and you know that's one of the most exciting conferences in any sport we have is the GR girls basketball. Because
my cell phone goes off again. You know,
I know. Why don't you turn that thing
Maybe we'll
off?
turn it on silent here.
You know, and other than that, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what Notre Dame's hockey team can do. They've been on fire lately. I think they're 4-0-1 in the last 5 games.
Big win over Genesee Avon last night.
Held on for that one. I want to see what they're going to do come towards sectional time, and you know, obviously GR boys hoops. So you know, a lot of things to do in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. It's really going to start ramping up, beginning with wrestling. Past couple of years, wrestling might challenge GR girls basketball for one of the toughest sports competitive level-wise, but it's been an incredible run for area wrestlers. We expect more of that this season. A couple of these basketball teams making a push for a sectional title. So it's an exciting time to be in the Glow region. And you know what, Nate? This will do it for Inside High School Sports, and we'll see you next week.